President Trump has delivered a forceful message to the BRICS countries, insisting they provide assurances to block the rise of any rival currency to the US dollar. He reiterated his dedication to keeping the dollar as the foremost global reserve currency and warned that harsh economic sanctions, including 100% tariffs, would be applied to any nation attempting to contest its supremacy. In a pointed message late last year, President Trump declared there is no chance that BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade or anywhere else. And any country that tries should say hello to tariffs and goodbye to America. Earlier this year, he reiterated his stance on social media, stating, "BRICS countries working to undercut the dollar is something we won't stand for. We insist on a clear commitment that these nations will not create or endorse any rival currency that undermines the US dollar. Otherwise, they will face 100% tariffs and be totally cut off from the vast US market." In a clear sign of its evolving economic strategy, and against Trump's warning, Brazil's BRICS presidency is set to push forward reforms designed to ease cross-border payments in local currencies. This move could gradually reduce the bloc's reliance on the US dollar. The focus is on streamlining international payments through innovative reforms that leverage technologies such as blockchain and improved payment system linkages. These initiatives aim to lower transaction costs and reduce friction in global trade as a practical step toward a more efficient trading environment. Brazil is drawing on its domestic success with its instant payment system, PIX, which has rapidly overtaken traditional cash, credit, and debit card transactions since its launch in late 2020. Additionally, Brazil's local currency payment system, SML, already in operation through agreements with Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, allows for direct settlements in Brazilian reais, bypassing the US dollar. Although current SML settlements take at least 3 business days, there is optimism that integrating instant payment technology could make these transactions more secure, faster, and cost-effective. BRICS representatives are set to convene in South Africa later this month on the sidelines of the G20 meetings, where Brazil will outline its plan for the July BRICS summit. As the group continues to expand, recently including countries such as Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, the initiative to enhance local currency payments is seen as part of a broader strategy to foster greater financial autonomy and resilience among emerging economies. From its early origins, the US dollar has evolved into a symbol of economic power and global influence. Its journey to dominance was neither accidental nor immediate, but rather the result of deliberate historical events, policy choices, and global shifts. The rise of the US dollar as the principal global reserve currency can be traced back to the aftermath of World War II, when the world sought stability and reconstruction. In 1944, Allied nations gathered at Bretton Woods to design a new international monetary system. At that conference, the US dollar was selected as the central currency, with other currencies pegged to it and the dollar convertible to gold at a fixed rate. This arrangement provided a stable framework for global trade and cemented the United States' economic and political ascendancy. During this era, the dollar was more than a medium of exchange. It symbolized hope, prosperity, and a commitment to rebuilding a war-ravaged world. For decades, the Bretton Woods system underpinned international trade. As global commerce expanded, the US dollar became integral to cross-border transactions. The strong performance of the American economy, boosted by its industrial might and sound fiscal policies, reinforced confidence in the currency, positioning it as the undisputed leader in global finance. However, by the late 1960s, fiscal imbalances and inflation began to strain the fixed exchange rate system. In 1971, President Nixon suspended the dollar's convertibility into gold in an event known as the Nixon Shock, ending the Bretton Woods era and ushering in floating exchange rates. Despite ensuing uncertainties, the US dollar retained its dominant position, buoyed by the strength of the American economy. The 1970s also saw the birth of the petrodollar system, as major oil-exporting nations agreed to price oil exclusively in US dollars, ensuring constant demand. Over time, deep financial markets, a stable political environment, and international institutions further reinforced the US dollar's position. Trump's forceful declaration mirrors U.S. recognition of the rapidly growing momentum behind global de-dollarization initiatives. It underscores concerns that a widespread move away from the dollar could erode its international stature and destabilize the U.S. economy. Should major economies successfully switch to alternative currencies or forge a viable challenger to the dollar, the U.S. might encounter consequences such as diminished demand for treasuries, increased borrowing costs, and reduced geopolitical clout. A swift shift from the dollar would signal a profound change in the global monetary order, weakening America's ability to wield economic influence. The repercussions of such a transition would be immense for global commerce, finance, and diplomacy, making it a critical issue for economists and policymakers to follow. To evaluate how far BRICS nations have come in their efforts to reduce reliance on the US dollar, it is important to note that BRICS members have been gradually boosting the use of their native currencies in trade, aiming for greater financial autonomy driven by both political and economic factors. In early 2023, China and Brazil, the two largest economies in the BRICS bloc, decided to conduct their trade in their own currencies, the Chinese yuan and the Brazilian real. This measure eliminates the requirement for the US dollar as an intermediary, thereby increasing trade efficiency and reducing exchange rate fluctuations. Statistics indicate that China-Brazil trade reached roughly $150 billion USD in 2022, with China serving as Brazil's primary trade partner. Transitioning to local currencies is anticipated to simplify transactions by lowering conversion fees and enhancing financial independence. Iran and Russia have made significant progress in uniting their financial systems to boost bilateral trade and evade Western sanctions. This collaboration involves connecting their national payment networks and mutually accepting bank cards, thereby strengthening economic ties between the two nations. In early 2023, Iran and Russia integrated their banking systems, allowing Iranian banks to access Russian financial institutions, as well as over 100 banks in 13 additional countries, via Russia's system for transfer of financial messages, an alternative to SWIFT. This integration permits the issuance of letters of credit, transfers, and guarantees without relying on SWIFT, thus lessening the impact of Western sanctions. On July 6, 2024, Iran's central bank declared the integration of its Shahtab interbank network with Russia's Mir payment system, enabling the use of Mir cards in Iran. By November 2024, Iran and Russia further deepened this financial integration by allowing Iranian bank cards to be used in Russia, facilitating easier payment processing and cash withdrawals for Iranian citizens abroad. India and Russia have also adopted local currencies for commercial transactions, particularly in the energy sector. Following Western sanctions imposed on Russia in 2022, both nations increased the use of the Indian rupee and the Russian ruble in their dealings. In 2023, Russia emerged as India's primary crude oil supplier, with a significant portion of these purchases conducted in Indian rupees. This setup allowed the countries to sidestep dollar-based payment systems, protecting them from external economic pressures. South Africa, the BRICS member with the smallest economy, has similarly demonstrated a preference for settling more transactions in yuan. China remains South Africa's leading trade partner, with annual bilateral trade exceeding $50 billion in 2023. South Africa signed agreements to pay for specific imports, particularly machinery and electronics, in yuan, thereby reducing dollar dependence and increasing yuan liquidity in African markets. If you've enjoyed the content so far, we'd appreciate a small favor. Hitting the like button helps us reach a broader audience, and sharing your thoughts or feedback in the comments makes an even bigger impact. Thank you for watching. Now let's continue. BRICS Pay is a decentralized payment platform created by the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, to enable smooth cross-border transactions in their local currencies. The initiative is designed to lessen reliance on Western-dominated financial networks such as SWIFT, thereby bolstering the economic sovereignty of its member states. Launched in 2018 by the BRICS Business Council, the BRICS Pay project utilizes existing national payment infrastructures, including Russia's Mir network and India's unified payment interface, to facilitate efficient international payments among member countries. The system permits users to send and receive payments in their native currencies, simplifying currency conversions and lowering transaction expenses. BRICS Pay is founded on advanced blockchain technology to provide secure, transparent, and efficient financial transactions across its member nations. Its design merges centralized systems for domestic operations with a decentralized structure for international transactions, ensuring both adherence to regulations and technological adaptability. National payment systems such as Russia's Mir, India's UPI, and China's Union Pay are seamlessly integrated for secure local transactions. On the international front, the system employs blockchain's decentralized networks to enable direct peer-to-peer transactions, removing intermediaries and facilitating real-time settlements. Distributed ledger technology guarantees immutable transaction records and supports smart contracts to automate currency conversions and compliance procedures. The hybrid design of BRICS Pay supports quick deployment, rendering it adaptable to various technical and regulatory settings among member nations. Its scalability enables it to handle growing transaction volumes and incorporate new participants without sacrificing efficiency. Interoperability is a key feature, enabling seamless interaction between different national payment frameworks and ensuring smooth cross-border transactions. Moreover, the distributed network optimizes liquidity flows by providing real-time settlements in local currencies. By encouraging the use of local currencies in international trade, BRICS Pay aims to weaken the US dollar's dominance in global transactions, promoting a multipolar financial order. BRICS nations share a unified goal of bolstering their financial stability and mitigating risks linked to currency volatility and geopolitical uncertainties. To achieve this, the bloc has embarked on an extensive accumulation of gold reserves. By the close of the second quarter of 2024, BRICS countries had amassed roughly 6,200 tons of gold, representing 21.4% of global reserves. Russia leads this effort with 2,340 tons, 8.1% of global holdings, followed closely by China with 2,260 tons, 7.8% of worldwide reserves. Significantly, Brazil has nearly tripled its gold reserves between 2018 and 2024, indicating a firm strategy to fortify its economic defenses. This build-up underscores a broader intent within the BRICS alliance to lessen reliance on the US dollar and foster financial sovereignty. By diversifying their monetary assets, member states shield themselves from sanctions and bolster their independence in monetary policy making. Gold acts as a hedge against external financial risks, ensuring that BRICS economies are better prepared to navigate global economic fluctuations and crises. This initiative is also about signaling a move toward a multicentric global monetary order, supporting broader efforts to assert economic autonomy and develop financial systems operating outside the confines of traditional Western-dominated frameworks. The integrated strategies of boosting gold reserves and rolling out initiatives such as BRICS Pay demonstrate the bloc's dedication to building a strong and self-reliant financial ecosystem. Combined, these measures are designed to create a resilient framework that can withstand market instability while reducing dependency on conventional financial channels like the US dollar and Western-controlled institutions. By coordinating efforts in gold accumulation and decentralized payment systems, BRICS nations are paving the way for a financial order that emphasizes stability, independence, and fair economic participation. De-dollarization refers to nations actively reducing their reliance on the US dollar in global trade and finance. Several critical factors drive this movement. Chief among these is the desire to protect economic sovereignty and stability. The dollar's dominance affords the United States considerable influence over the global economy, and its monetary policies can trigger volatility in other nations. By distancing themselves from the dollar, countries seek to regain policy autonomy and lessen vulnerability to external shocks. Reliance on the dollar also exposes nations to US sanctions, which can restrict access to international financial systems. Countries like Russia and China are exploring alternative options to maintain economic independence and avoid such limitations. Another significant driver is reserve diversification. Central banks around the world have historically held large portions of their reserves in US dollars, but there is a growing trend toward diversifying into other currencies and even gold. This approach helps distribute risk and weaken the dollar's dominance. Political and strategic considerations also play a role. Powers like China and Russia are working to counterbalance US influence by promoting the use of their own currencies in international transactions as part of a broader vision for a multipolar global financial order. Moreover, regional economic agreements are increasingly used to conduct transactions in local currencies, reducing the dollar's role. Finally, de-dollarization mirrors shifting global economic dynamics. As emerging markets grow and strengthen their roles in international trade, they naturally gravitate toward using their own currencies to reflect their increasing influence and bolster their financial networks. President Trump has explicitly urged BRICS nations to uphold US dollar dominance, threatening severe tariffs if they pursue de-dollarization. He declared on his Truth Social account, "BRICS countries attempting to weaken the dollar is something we cannot tolerate. We demand an unequivocal promise that these nations will not establish or support any rival currency that challenges the US dollar. Failing that, they will be hit with 100% tariffs and completely excluded from the vast US market." Throughout his campaign, Trump has pledged to make it financially unfeasible for any country to abandon the US dollar. His latest comments have escalated tensions ahead of his planned January inauguration. Trump's warnings align with his previous use of tariffs to advance his economic objectives. Reports indicate that his inner circle is evaluating strategies to penalize nations engaging in bilateral trade outside of the dollar, including restricting exports, designating such countries as currency manipulators, and imposing additional trade tariffs. These actions are consistent with Trump's persistent commitment to maintaining the dollar's supremacy. In a March discussion, he remarked that allowing other nations to forsake the dollar would be a significant blow to the US economy. The debate on de-dollarization intensified after the BRICS Group's 2023 summit, during which members discussed reducing reliance on the dollar. The concept of alternative currencies gathered steam in 2022, when US-led sanctions against Russia fueled global discontent over the dollar's monopoly. Trump's campaign underscores the necessity of confronting these trends, indicating a resolute plan to counter any economic coalition aiming to weaken the dollar's influence. Trump has already unsettled international financial markets with announcements of broader tariffs on key trading partners. Previously, he stated he would levy a 10% tariff on Chinese imports and a 25% duty on goods from Mexico and Canada unless those governments implemented stricter measures against drug trafficking and illegal immigration. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently met with Trump to discuss trade and border issues in the context of potential tariffs, suggesting that efforts at reconciliation might be in progress. Nevertheless, Trump's stance shows his readiness to use economic tools to further both domestic and international agendas. Trump stressed there is no possibility that BRICS nations can replace the dollar in global trade. Any country that attempts to do so will be entirely cut off from the US economy. As he prepares to take office, his assertive economic policies seem set to be a central feature of a second term, carrying significant implications for global commerce and diplomatic ties. The BRICS decision to develop a new payment system and consider introducing an alternative currency has reverberated throughout Western financial systems. These initiatives represent a unified effort to contest the US dollar's position as the world's leading reserve currency. By establishing an alternative financial infrastructure and reducing dependence on dollar-based trade and reserves, BRICS is actively shifting the global economic landscape toward a more multipolar order. This strategic reorientation has especially unsettled the United States, since the dollar's reserve status has long granted the US economy unique advantages, such as lower borrowing costs and substantial leverage in international markets. Under the Trump administration, these developments have sparked concerns about the potential weakening of America's economic influence. President Trump has openly expressed apprehension that BRICS's coordinated actions threaten the bedrock of U.S. financial dominance, risking the loss of its privileged status. In retaliation, Trump has ramped up rhetoric targeting nations in the global south, cautioning them about the risks of aligning with the BRICS bloc. His administration has emphasized the potential consequences of challenging dollar hegemony, including strained economic ties with the United States. Yet for many countries, the promise of a fairer and more independent financial system outweighs these warnings, marking a critical juncture in the reconfiguration of global economic power. The BRICS initiative stands not only as a challenge to the dollar, but also as a broader declaration of sovereignty and a call for a more equitable distribution of economic influence in the 21st century. Thank you for watching this video. We sincerely appreciate you joining us today. If our content resonated with you or sparked inspiration, please consider expressing your support by liking and subscribing to stay connected with our community. Your support holds immense value for us. You can watch another video on our channel, which is now on the screen. Recent analyses from the Bank for International Settlements, or BIS, provide further insight into the shifting balance of global currencies, noting that cross-border transactions involving non-dollar currencies among emerging markets have risen by over 15% since 2020. These findings indicate a tangible move toward diversified payment mechanisms, wherein states increasingly rely on regional currencies rather than the dollar for settling trade obligations. Furthermore, BIS reports emphasize that blockchain-based payment platforms, such as those tested by several BRICS members, could continue to grow in importance, particularly if they achieve interoperability with existing financial infrastructures. In the same vein, a 2024 working paper by the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, highlights that while the US dollar remains the dominant reserve currency, accounting for about 58% of total global reserves, this figure has been trending downward. The IMF study attributes the decline partially to the accelerated pace of global gold purchases by central banks in emerging markets. By layering alternative assets like gold onto their reserve holdings, countries can mitigate the economic repercussions of currency fluctuations and potential US-driven sanctions. Meanwhile, an independent study sponsored by the World Economic Forum, or WEF, found that de-dollarization aligns strongly with emerging economies' ambitions to enhance monetary sovereignty. According to the report, a more decentralized monetary environment could pave the way for regionally anchored institutions that jointly issue or regulate new digital currencies for cross-border usage. The study also points out that such a trend may gradually erode the exorbitant privilege historically enjoyed by the United States, as the dollar's decline in market share could alter its risk-free benchmark status in international lending and investment. Although experts caution that any major shift away from dollar-centric systems is likely to unfold over an extended period, the convergence of strategic gold buying, technological advancements, and political motivations suggests a steady, long-term rebalancing of the global monetary order. In particular, continued cooperation among BRICS nations, supplemented by tangible policy changes, could expedite the adoption of alternative financial mechanisms, potentially reshaping the landscape of international trade and reserves management well into the next decade.